It's that time, as it is always week, for Friday Night Meta here on the weekly series on the channel. Excited to bring you the latest and greatest, the newest and best when it comes to the meta here in Magic the Gathering. Now, right now, we got March of the Machine going on. We're certainly past a full week into a lot more action, a little bit more movement in the meta, lots of new decks out there as well that we've certainly played here that you can check out. But today is the day where we walk through all these different things across best of one and best of three and all the formats, and I'm excited to bring that to you here today. Now, down below in the timestamps, you do have access to each of those pieces. Additionally, if you happen to have a question or comment throughout the episode, do let me know. I love to hear what you think, what your thoughts are, as always, and feel free to come swing by the Discord server and say hello. We got a great community there as well. So thank you for tuning in. Let's get moving here because we do have a lot to get through. Right now in Standard, best of one, Azora Soldier still maintains that #1 coveted spot in terms of that win rate, pushing very, very well. It has also started to climb back up, I think, and we'll take a look at that here in a second in terms of what's going on. That 5-color reanimator list becoming a little bit more prevalent in terms of what's happening as well. Seeing mono blue tempo popping back in, and across this, as you can see, we got Azora Soldiers, mono red aggro, mono red burn, tempo, Rakdos midrange, mono black midrange, Grixis midrange, and 5-color reanimator. Really in the top 4 slots there, being that animator, soldiers, midrange, and burn list in terms of popularity. Now, this is again at aggregate from bronze to mythic, as you can see, and we will take a look here at mythic in a second. So as we can see exactly that I just talked about, that popularity over time is our soldiers starting to creep back in. We start to see mono red burn falling off a little bit, that mono black midrange falling off a little bit. 5-color reanimator, like we said, becoming more popular, that mono blue popping in, and then also that Rakdos midrange doing a little bit better there. Now, win rates over time, certainly we're starting to see that compression there on the Azora Soldiers list, and then that mono red aggro starting to come back up, and then we also see that Rakdos. Now, however, it's been kind of an arc for that reanimator, but mono blue tempo also progressing fairly well in the current meta. All right, if we go ahead and look at mythic, what do we got going here? We have a few different things happening. We see Esper Legends becoming more of a thing in terms of what's happening there. We see a few things pop out, like Rakdos midrange as an example, and then here on the right, again, similar style in terms of what we're seeing there in the meta. All right, let's fall all the way back out. Another good one to check out here is the best of 3 situation. So Esper Legends still being one of the top decks. We have Grixis Hidetsugu. A very, very fun list. This is really a Grixis mid-range list. Absolutely check it out. We've done one on the channel. I really had a lot of fun with that one, and you can check that out. Here we got Rakdos mid-range, Grixis mid-range, 5-color, and that's really the difference. Grixis Hidetsu versus Grixis midrange, mono white midrange, mono red burn, and Jeskai control also being a pretty cool list. And then here on the right, you can see where those top 4 are. Now, as we see the progression and changes here, we talked about some of those with the set release. We do see that Grixis midrange becoming more prominent. We also see that 5-color reanimator being more prominent. And then here on the right, we see that Esper Legends really starting to pay off very, very well in terms of win rate relative to the other decks and sets, or other decks and styles there. Now, if we go to Mythic, we do see a couple things moving out and some other things moving in. We got Selesnya Toxic in there. Esper Legends still maintaining at the top. Again, Toxic, a relatively small list in terms of popularity. But again, all those things there nonetheless. And then here on the right, some of those changes and trending pieces over time. All right. That concludes Standard for March of the Machines. Let's go ahead and check out Alchemy, see if there's anything going on, a little bit going on here. Rakdos Sacrifice at the top, mono red aggro, mono red burn, mono black control, dimmer ninjas, Grixis midrange, and 5-color reanimator. On the right here, just totally dominated by that mono red aggro. And then again, as you see the spread in terms of popularity and some of the differences in the win rates there. Let's see if there's anything at the mythic space. Just mono red aggro. Is it all? Is it all mono red aggro? Yep. But we do see it trending down which is important because then that means that there's a lot more changes going on in the meta, but certainly not enough information there. Let's go ahead and pop that all the way back to best of 3 here. Best of 3 is really Grixis midrange, and we'll just conclude with it is really Grixis midrange. All right. Then when we go back to best of 1, we start to take a look at historic. Historic, again, like we talked about last time, is it Wizards kind of reclaiming its spot, and we still see that here. We do see Rakdos midrange, Esper Affinity again, really making the more broader set here from Bronze and Mythic, Elves, aggro, mono red aggro, Azor's Control in there, Selesnya Angels, Dimmer Mill holding up. And then again here on the right, you can really see the top 3 being Is It Wizards, Mono Green Elves, Selesnya Angels, followed by kind of the second portion of deck list there. Here on the right, again, we talked about this big jump that Is It Wizards in terms of popularity, and then also, Is It Wizards just kind of sneaking in there last minute over that Esper Affinity. At least when we did the clip today, could have been Esper Affinity yesterday, similar to Rakdos midrange. Lots of things moving in that space. Obviously, Mono Green Elves being pretty consistent there, and then similar with the Selesnya Angels popping up, the Azor's Control similar style, and then Dimmer Mill kind of flipping around the other way there, and then probably a lot of changes in terms of what's moving in the meta, creating that kind of arc in the win rates. So let's go ahead and look at Mythic. Mythic here, we have Is It Wizards, we got Rakdos midrange, and Esper Affinity being really the competitive list. Again, Is It Wizards still coming down along with Esper Affinity, which means that that is getting a little bit more competitive there, at least in terms of the meta for those things. All right, let's go ahead. Best of 3 historic. Best of 3 historic. We got Rakdos Goblins, Is It Wizards, 5-color Reanimator, Mono Green Devotion, 4-colored Kethis, Rakdos midrange, Azor's Control, and Jund midrange in there. And again, this is at the aggregate level. Really, these 2 ones, Rakdos and 5-color Reanimator, being the 2 differentiators against the rest of the meta. And here again, we continue to see it climb. We continue to see it climb in terms of what's happening. And really kind of seeing that Rakdos midrange dropping off, Reanimator kind of dropping off as well. Lots of movement there in terms of historic meta. Let's go ahead and see what's going on in Mythic. Mythic, really Rakdos midrange heavily there at 70% and 17% of the popularity nonetheless. All right. So we're going to pull this back, go into our last best of 1 and best of 3 with Explorer. Explorers being dominated by mono white humans. There we go. A little bit of a change there. Abzan Greasefang, Azor's Control, Selesnya Angels, Rakdos Sacrifice, Mono Green Devotion, Mono Red Aggro, and Rakdos midrange. Here on the right, mono white humans being a little piece there at the bottom. We see Selesnya Angels, Mono Green Devotion, and Mono Red Aggro really dominating, and then Abzan Greasefang being fairly close. And then as we look at the popularity, again, Selesnya Angels doing well. We see the switch between Mono Red Aggro falling off, Mono Green Devotion coming up. We start to see that Mono White coming up there as well. And then here on the right, we see that, again, Mono White Humans was out of the gate pretty strong, took a dip, and now has reclaimed that spot. We do see that Mono Green, or that Abzan Greasefang starting to pilot back up in terms of what's going on with its win rates, getting close, getting more competitive as these things continue to change and evolve week over week, day over day. All right, now let's go ahead and see what's going on in the Mythic space. In the Mythic space, we got Azor's Control, Boros Heroic, Abzan Greasefang, and Selesnya Angels. So something that's totally different there in terms of some of these pieces. Really, Selesnya Angels and Greasefang kind of still hanging in there from the other stuff that we saw at aggregate nonetheless. All right. Over to best of 3. Best of 3, we got Mono Green Devotion. Obviously, Mono Blue Spirits has kind of fallen out, it looks like, a little bit. So I wanted to comment on that. We got Gruul Vehicles, Rakdos midrange, Abzan Greasefang, 5-color Creativity, Azor's Control, and Is It Creativity here as well. So 2 creativity decks. Popularity, really these kind of top 3 in terms of what's going on. Again, set release, we see Rakdos midrange coming down, coming back up, Mono Green Devotion coming up, coming back down. That Dimmer Rogues getting more popular in terms of what we're seeing, Azor's Control, and then everything else kind of being flat. We do see these 3 being pretty tight in terms of the win rates. Obviously, Mono Green Devotion popping up there right at the end, obviously, when we're doing this cut. So that's at an aggregate. Let's go ahead and check out Mythic. Mythic, we do have Greasefang, Azor's Control, Mono Green Devotion, Rakdos midrange, Gruul vehicles, 5-color Transmogrify, Mogrify, and 5-color Fire. So again, a couple of different things here. An Explorer best of 3 at the top end here in Mythic, with a couple of different changes over time going on as well. All right, that concludes Explorer. Time to check out Historic Brawl. Is our friend Ragavan still going to be the key one? It is. Look at that. All right. So Ragavan, we also have Atraxa Grand Unifier, Rusko Clockmaker, the First Sliver, Atraxa Praetor's Voice. We have Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty, Itali, and Thalia, and the Gittog Monster, which is a sweet card. Atraxa Praetor's Voice at 6%, Ragavan at 5.2%. So Atraxa really starting to come back up in terms of that popularity. It's exactly what we see. We see those coming off Ragavan, and we see Atraxa coming up. And then as we move over here, we do see Itali becoming a little bit more popular. And then here on the right, you can see that win rate. So again, as that Atraxa list is coming back in, we start to see Ragavan picking up on some of that win rate. We do, however, see Atraxa doing a little bit better. We see Thalia moving up as well, and then Tamio moving in, which was not one of the ones here, however. So that is a nice Historic Brawl meta as things continue to evolve and change. Always a lot of fun there. Ragavan being an extraordinarily powerful list currently in the space. With that said, let's pull it all back for our Friday night meta weekly series here on the channel as we break down all the latest and greatest information here in Magic the Gathering and current meta, March of the Machine. So thank you for tuning in. As always, appreciate the likes, the subs, and a huge thank you to the members as always as we continue to grow this great channel and great community. With that, again, if you have any questions, comments, let me know. I love to hear from you, and come say hi in the Discord server. Lots of people in there, so thank you for that. Now, lastly, we got a ton more Magic the Gathering content headed your way. We got a lot of these decks that you can check out here on the channel as well, and I highly encourage that if you're looking for an option or some guidance on how to play some of these things, or just curious about learning more. With that, again, we'll see you soon. We got a ton more headed your way this week, and it's going to be a fun week because we got some other things going on too. So stay tuned. With that said, take care. Mythras out of here.